just be when one of my staff or something will call me, and then there I be. Okay. Okay, there we go. That's more like it. There it is. Okay, we're streaming now on Facebook, so we should be.
All right. Good evening and welcome to this special edition, this first edition, the premiere edition of A Conversation with Men of Color. This is the very first show, September the 8th, 2020, and I'm here with three distinguished gentlemen. I have Leonard Young, I have Audwin Odom, and I have Apostle Ivory Hopkins. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, Omar. How you doing?
All right. So what I want to do is just you three gentlemen just share with those who are watching, just give a brief synopsis of who yourself or your name, where do you work, your education, and family background. We'll start off with Leonard, then Audwin, then Apostle Ivory.
Yes, greetings, everybody. My name is Leonard Young. I graduated from the #1 HBCU in the nation, Florida A&M University. I got a degree in mechanical engineering. About 10 or so years ago, I started a business called DelawareBlack.com with the purpose of promoting Black businesses, events, and organizations. And since then, transpired to have about 18 other cities that we still promote Black businesses, events, and organizations under the brand of National Black Guide.
Okay, Audwin.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Audwin Odom. I am currently working for Highmark Health Options. I'm a care coordinator there. I graduated from the #1 HBCU, Delaware State University, as a social worker.
Oh my God.
Currently trying to get my license as a clinical social worker. And that's about it for right now.
Okay, Apostle.
Yes, I'm Apostle Ivory Hopkins, and I'm founder of Pilgrim's Ministry of Deliverance in the metropolis of Georgetown, Delaware. And that's way on the bottom to y'all up north. I'm also I'm an East Coast chancellor for Rafa Deliverance University, founded in Phoenix, Arizona, in the California area. And I am chancellor of the Delaware division. And I also am a teacher of Deliverance globally, worldwide. And so it's a proud honor to be here with you, gentlemen, talking about the things of life and the things of God, how it all fits together in one. It's a pleasure being with you tonight.
All right, definitely.
Thank you. You too.
Yes,
all of you gentlemen have impressive resumes, but I want to ask, you guys probably had to overcome some challenges and obstacles in terms of the journey of where you are today. So I want to start off with Apostle, then Audwin, then Leonard. Is there a particular struggle or a particular obstacle that you had to deal with in life? And how did you learn to overcome that obstacle or that struggle? Apostle.
One of the main struggles that I had to deal with in life was basically the self-image of who I was. You know, sometimes growing up in families and what have you, God has a way of placing you in places. And I'm the 12th son of the family of 15, very, very proud to be that 12th son of the family of 15. But there were times in my life through my own inner struggle, I was struggling with my identity of who I was as a person and as a man, and being a Black man having to struggle too, as well as what society also was putting on us and what have you. But here was what I have learned. I have learned that there is a God in heaven who holds our destiny. And if we hold ourselves upright before him, allow him to lead us, he can guide us through paths of insecurity, rejection, low self-esteem, and can make greatness that is in you come forward. That's one of the things that I had to learn, because there was a time in my life, as my sisters and brothers, and even you being my nephew, hear me say this, there was a time in my life that I felt that I didn't fit in anywhere. Now, no one would have known that, because, you know, we kids don't say what we feel. We just feel it and it becomes a part of our identity. And the struggle I had was that, being in a large family, being raised by my aunt and uncle in another area in Maryland. But you know what? All things do work together for the good of them that love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. That struggle of identity ended up bringing me to a place today that I find this to be true, that destiny is not a destination, it's a journey. And in the journey of life, where I was placed at as a small kid developed me as I am as a man. And now today, when I'm home with my brothers and sisters and my mom, praise God, she's still alive and kicking. We love her so dearly. She's an inspiration. But I learned what it is to have a black mother raising a bunch of kids with not a whole lot of help, but a whole lot of faith. That's what helped me through my struggles, man. One of the many things.
Definitely. Sounds great. Audwin?
Yes. Where to begin? I guess. Well, one of my struggles, my major struggle, was substance use, drugs and alcohol. Uh, I too, as Pastor Ivory said, was fortunate because I found God, and the rooms of AA and NA helped me through that struggle. You know, as I grew up, I had a two-family household, and drinking and smoking was a norm. So I thought. And then from the time I graduated high school, I went to the Marine Corps, and I did develop a different family, a military family. And with that, drinking was also a norm. And it became a way of life for me. So when I left the military and came back to society, trying to find who I was a struggle. Because as the Marine Corps says, once a Marine, always a Marine. So I had that embedded in my heart. I spent 8+ years in the Marine Corps, got out with honorable discharge, and then I came back to society, and it was a whole different world. But family, a praying mother, I just lost her in June. My father, who struggled with cancer for 15 years, supported me through my whole struggles. And as I said, I developed family in other places, and one of the major places was church. Having that spiritual background, I gravitated to a church home, and haven't looked back. And I just celebrated. I was telling Omar, August 27th, which is the same day my father died. 1 year later, I started my sobriety on that date, and I just celebrated 19 years. So God is good. God is good.
Awesome. That is awesome. Okay, Leonard.
Yep. For me, it's probably a little bit different because I always think about kind of like how I started my business and the history. But, I think one of my biggest struggles for myself is just being out in front of people, which probably sounds a little crazy, but, I feel like all my life, like I was always, and I just call myself an individual. I kind of did my own thing. I wasn't really, I didn't really worry about what too many people thought about everything. But, when I think about like when I started my business, and even before, like I'm very comfortable, being that person who helps out, the volunteer, the, that person who's kind of behind the scenes. So, I think one thing that I really struggled with starting my business, and, sometimes still today, is, kind of like they say, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So like people who are out in front, the people who are, visible, those are the people who, a lot of times will excel, or at least appear to excel. So, kind of when I think about myself and my business, I can probably think of, I probably should have been a millionaire like 5 years ago, something like that. But what I learned, and, it was a challenge, still is a challenge sometimes, but it's kind of like consistency. The more you do things, the easier it gets. And, I'll definitely say the last 4 years, I kind of, stopped worrying about, I think somebody else said it too, but, what other people think, the perceptions other people have for you, and, just kind of do what you can do. So, I mean, that was probably one of my biggest struggles. Probably the other struggle was just, and I think sometimes when you think differently from other people, they judge you differently as well. So, I feel like a lot of the things that I wanted to do business-wise or life-wise didn't make sense to a lot of people. And, I think a lot of times we get discouraged because it'll be the people who are closest to us who kind of, we value their opinion the most. And so when we go off that beaten track, it's like, okay, well, my passion is doing this, but this person close to me is saying that it can't be done. So, you know, I have dealt with a lot of that. Oh, you know, it can't be done. It'll never work. You know, nobody's going to support it. And, you know, I think, you know, I'm just glad that I stayed consistent in a lot of things I did, because I felt like I overcame it that way. And then I always like the quote where they say, like, success is built on successes. So it's kind of like the more you're successful, the easier everything gets.
Definitely. I want to stay with you for a little, Leonard. You know, when I first met you, man, I don't know if it was 10 years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I'm quite sure you were just basically on a local level. It was the DelawareBlack.com. And now, man, you're in Maryland, maybe Washington, D.C., from Philadelphia. So how did you grow your business from Delaware to like maybe 8, 9 other cities? I mean, that's awesome achievement.
Yeah, thank you. So basically how it happened was, so like, you know, I started DelawareBlack.com in 2006, 14 years ago. So like, that really makes me feel old. But, you know, after about 2 years, you know, I just came to realize, okay, like if we have a platform here in Delaware where people can, you know, share positive news regarding African Americans, if they can support their business, if they can, you know, list their events and to kind of be like a resource, why can't other areas benefit from that? And when I started looking around, like one of the main things I saw is there were a lot of people who did like bits and pieces, but there weren't a lot of people who had articles, had a Black business directory, and had a kind of like an event calendar. So really that's what gave me the idea. I think I first started with Philadelphia, New York, Baltimore, DC, and Atlanta. And then about 4 years ago, I was like, okay, you know, what am I waiting for? You know, time is short. And at that point, I launched 10 other websites in 10 other cities. Right now, we have 18 cities in our network that, you know, we really promote Black businesses, events, and, you know, positive news regarding African Americans.
Definitely.
You know, something I would like to say, listening at you, Leonard, it makes me really realize that passion drives us into purpose. For sure.
Yeah.
Passion drives us into purpose. I was listening at how that you were talking about how that your mind was set and you didn't need to be the crowd. You just created
Right.
what would become an aid to the many. You know, the individual of one being focused on purpose, being focused on the things that drives your spirit. We preachers call it fire in the belly. But at the end of the day, that drive caused you to go right into purpose and develop your brand and the things that you're doing. And I just want to commend you on that. You know, I can
Oh,
tell when
thank
I
you.
listen to a person talk, if it just drives you, if it burns your soul until you wanted to extend from yourself, that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, it
Isn't it
is.
amazing, guys, to find something in your life that goes beyond you, you know, that goes so far sometimes that you say, my God, if God gives me another creative idea, if he gives me anything else, I don't know what I'll do with myself. But that passion drives us into purpose. That's what's
Yeah.
happening with you, man.
Oh, thank you. And you know, I definitely agree. And you know, I definitely agree. I have a passion because like one of the things I always think about, and there's probably a lot of other people in business and community who feel the same way, but like a lot of times, like if I have a free weekend, like I won't want to go nowhere, like I won't want to hang out, like I just want to like work, you know, all weekend long, you know, stuff like that. And I did there was a conference I did last week where I was speaking, and it was kind of similar but a little bit different. But you know, two things that kind of pop out from what you said. You know, one of the things that's probably the most fulfilling about what I do is when we can help people and they kind of now, okay, like you sent this out, you promoted our business, we got customers, you know, that feels good. And then two, you know, I think I've always had like a servant's mentality. So, you know, even though we have a network, you know, 18 cities, you know, let's say a couple million followers and all that, you know, I still consider myself a servant to the people who are, you know, advertising, submitting articles, you know, doing work. And, you know, like, you know, we're not perfect, you know, we make mistakes and, you know, like there'll be people who want to curse me out and all that, but I always feel like, okay, let me make it right. So.
But that
Well,
core
you learn
drive.
from your mistakes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah. But I was listening at you and I heard that core drive again in you, servant. No matter how high you become, no matter how God develops or blesses you, you're still a servant. It's your beginning. If you can hold on to the passion of your beginning as you expand, the greatness will expand, but the man won't change from who he
Right.
really is. And who you really are a servant. You can have millions following, you're still a servant. That's what I learned in the things that I do. I never dreamed of a country boy in Georgetown, Delaware, coming from a family of 15, would end up becoming having one of the strongest deliverance ministries in America among the many. I'm one of the
Hmm.
strongest ones in America, and now going worldwide. I never dreamed that. But do you know what? The kid inside with the fire, the kid inside that wants to serve and wants to help. Sometimes I feel like I wish I could do more.
Right.
But guess what? That's what passion is. That's what the true drive is of success. You never get satisfied. Look, I'm 64 years old and relevant and alive and still kicking and still dreaming. Man, that's a blessing. And I let
Definitely.
nothing in society will I let bring limitations to me, not culture, nor color, or anything, because that's giving too much power to somebody else controlling my life. Can't let it happen that way, man.
Right.
Right.
Definitely.
Um, Bishop, I'm sorry, Apostle and Audwin, both of you are in the, well, my light keeps falling.
Hmm.
Both of you are in the helping profession. Audwin, you work with adults with mental health and substance abuse, sometimes
Hmm.
co-occurring disorders. Apostle, you counsel people, you counsel couples. Talk about the satisfaction that you get in terms of being able to help people shape their lives around, being able to help people stay clean from substance abuse, be able to help couples, get their marriage together, get their individual selves together. I want to start with all of them.
Yeah, well, that's my passion. Just being able, as the brother said earlier, to serve. You know, that's my business. You know, uh, it's my way of giving back what was truly given to me, right? Freely given to me. You know, with the help of AA, NA, my church family. You know, I was awarded the opportunity to share my beliefs, my strengths. Being a social worker, I work on a strength based perspective. Uh, Omar and we started school at Springfield College. Uh, I knew education was a key to help me succeed and to help others. But I didn't stop at Springfield. I went on and got my master's degree at Delaware State, and I'm continuing. Trying to get my license. Hopefully, God willing, I'll have them in November as a licensed clinical social worker.
Awesome.
And one of the things I've learned is you can't save everybody, but if you save just that one,
Hmm.
it's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Alderman,
Apostle?
Alderman, I just got to tune back into Alderman, man, because the work that he does, man, I thank God for you. You know what I did one time that I thought even I had my ministers to actually do is I had them to go to AA, go to NA, set in the meeting. It's one thing to preach about what somebody's going through. It's another thing to have more than just a concept, but have a reaching out and touching that very area. You see, I was a little wannabe drug dealer back in the day, strong on drug abuse, cocaine and crack cocaine and all that type of thing. And as today, when I look at the lives of people, man, we're giving it back, ain't we, man?
Yes.
We're reaching back by the grace of God and not forgetting. Something I would like to say on this live here to every one of you out there that are listening who have family members that are bound and wrestling with drugs, or you yourself is wrestling with it. Don't ever become arrogant to think that you can't slip, fall, or stumble back in. Be wise enough to realize that you're one grace and one brokenness in your wound and in your being that can draw you back in. Because the thing about drug addiction, as my man really would attest to, it always tries to bring you back to a place of familiarity, as that being the comfort and the source of the broken wounds inside you. You know, so I just say when in the work that you do, I commend you, man. You
Thank
guys, I mean, we work with you guys along with you. I believe in the spiritual side. That's the faith, and you know what I'm talking about there. believing in God. I mean, we use the term a higher power. We know what we're talking about. I'm not going to get into logistics of the name because I know what I'm talking about when I talk about who is my strength and the source of my life and the light of my life. But at the end of the day, we also need to have wise counsel. For anything that is done is built by wise counsel. And the counseling that is done through counselors like yourself, those that understand substance abuse, if there can be just one saved. We here on this end of Delaware had two drug overdoses in the last couple of weeks that were terrible. I'm sure in the city that would be on a larger basis, but it broke my heart to find out less than a mile from my house, someone died. Not many miles further than that, someone died by drug addiction and what have you. The same thing that I used to be bound by. People like us have to keep hoping, have to keep working, have to keep believing, man, for these lives, because these lives matter, man.
Yes, it is.
Definitely. All three of you gentlemen are fathers. Prior to becoming a father, is your life changed once you had your children? Were there things in the past that you may have done prior to becoming a father, but once that child came and those children came, I gotta get my act together. Let's start off with Leonard.
Maybe not so much let me get my act together, but I mean, kids will definitely change your life. I think when you are kidless, you're kind of like the boss. And, once you start having kids, you're not necessarily the boss. Your time is not your time anymore. Your money is not your money. So, I think it's more of that where, kids will dominate your life. And, I think there's a good balance in still maintaining some individuality, but also being a parent, being a father, even being a good father. So without a doubt, kids will change your life.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I'm raising two boys, 14 and 10. 19 years ago, I couldn't even imagine that. And the thing about it, God blessed me with children at a late age, 45 years old.
Oh, man, yeah.
I just turned 60, and I'm blessed. These guys keep me young, but with the state of the world today, continuing educating my sons, it's a priority. And I know we'll talk about this a little later, but as Leonard was saying, my world is their world. Everything evolves around them today. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
All right, Apostle.
Well, like these brothers here, I've got a little more stretch of time and what have you. My son is about 44 years old. My daughter 43. Matter of fact, my daughter is in Philadelphia, not far from you guys, and what have you. She's a lawyer, and my son lives down the road, and he's a truck driver. And I'm gonna tell you the most amazing thing about them too, to see them develop into who they are. When you sat down across from your son, and he's the same little kid that you raised and watched and cared for and taken care of, and now you're looking at him as a man. And sometimes when he and I get together now, I mean, it is the most incredible moment to me. I don't know whether he even knows how incredible it is. We talk about current events, and he pops over with me different videos and stuff where he's looking at things online, and we go toe to toe, head to head on certain matters. It is the most amazing thing that I love about him. He's a man. You know what I mean? He's a man. My daughter, in her own right, she's in Philadelphia. She always tells me, Dad, I love coming down there for a visit, but y'all don't have enough going on for me to be there. And I look at her and laugh. It was just fine when I raised you, right? But I mean, just the delightfulness of watching them grow, watching them go. Later on, Omar, in our conversation, looking at the way things are in times, that same son that I see as a man today and what have you, I cringe when I watch some of the things that are in our current day and our current news, because he's the same young black man that I had to tell how to operate and maneuver if he's pulled over in a traffic stop. And had to fear that. I had to wonder when he would go out in school at different things, whether he would come back home okay. I mean, it was different. But today he's a grown man and he knows how to handle himself and he knows how to carry himself and what have you. But those is a factor looking at the climate that we look at today that we live in.
Okay, Apostle, you just answered my next question. So let me go to Audwin and Leonard. Both of you have sons. Have you got to the point, or do you plan on in the future having that talk with your son in terms of what does he do if he gets stopped by the police? Let's start with Audwin.
You know, it's funny you said that. Today we were on our way to Brandywine High School to pick up some equipment for school. Our school starts next month, and you know, actually we was helping a friend out. But while him and I were sitting in the truck, you know, I had my hands on the wheels and I said, "What would you do if you get stopped?" I mean, he's 14, he'll be starting driver's ed. I'm teaching him how to drive, and surprisingly, he gave me the correct answer. You know, he said, "You know, I would keep my hands visible." And I would ask the officer, "How are you today?" You know, he's very mannerly anyway. So I'm glad that some of the things that me and my wife are instilling in him are starting to come to fruition. You know, I can see him growing as a young man. You know, and he's very courteous. He's kind. He loves helping others. He loves giving back. He's volunteering. You know, but just to continue that conversation, I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Leonard?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely agree. My son's a little bit younger. So, you know, he doesn't have like the privileges to kind of be out by himself or without a parent or an adult. But, you know, I definitely say a couple things. So like, I remember when George Floyd, like the video for George Floyd went out, and, you know, just talking to him about it, because, you know, I was curious if he really understood, okay, you know, there are people out there who will treat you different because of your skin color. There are people who out there who will, you know, deny you rights, maybe cause you harm and treat you unfairly because of your skin color. So we did have, you know, some of those conversations just to kind of see if he understood. The school he goes to is a very mixed school. So, you know, it's not like the high school, you know, I feel like the schools I went to growing up were probably like 90% white, 10% black. So there was always that struggle where I don't know if he notices it at his school because there's so much diversity. So those are definitely more conversations that we'll have in the future.
Definitely. You know, about a month ago, I did a show with all mothers, and the topic of the discussion was mothers who fear for their sons' lives. And one of the questions that I asked the mothers, I said, as your son gets older, let's say 15, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, does the fear go away? And they all said, no. So as fathers, I know your sons are younger, Leonard and Audwin and Apostle, your son's in his 40s, but do you see that as your children gets older, your sons get older, that the fear goes away, or is it going to be there for the rest of their lives?
I mean, so I almost feel like as they get older, the fear gets worse, because, you know, like it, if we just think about how teenagers are. So of course, like if my son is 10 now, he's not going anywhere. You know, he's not going nowhere without me. But, you know, like a teenager, you know, probably most teenagers think they're invincible. That's probably where they try a lot of stuff they shouldn't be trying, do a lot of stuff they shouldn't be doing. And, you know, especially even if we look at the way social media is now, they probably want to be like a lot of people they see on social media for whatever reason. So I almost feel like, so I don't know how racism will be in 5 years, but I definitely fear for just the exposure that my son will want to do stuff on his own without his parents, you know, not call, you know, not always notifying me of where he is, and, you know, kind of like the stuff we probably did when we were kids, but it was a different climate.
Yeah, you know, I have a 10-year-old also, and you know, his school is diverse, and he always asks me, like, when we see things on news, why is everyone talking about blackness? It shouldn't be no blackness. We're all the same people. And this is a 10-year-old. You
Wow.
know, so he has the insight, but now he's becoming more aware. That, okay, well, if I'm in say a racial situation, what should I do? Right? He's starting to the conversation is starting to come, and just around of he's brown skinned and he sees a difference, right? Just by the media, the news, and things of that nature.
Definitely. I would say this, guys, being a father with a son that is as old as my son is, and 44 years old, I still to this day have a caution in me about his job and his whereabouts, in the sense that him being a truck driver, at one point he was all over America, all in the Midwest, all over here, all over there. And when all of this drama has been going on, I would be praying that he doesn't end up driving into a vicinity or an area where all of this stuff is going on and he get caught or pulled up in it. No matter how strong or how tough that you are, this world is a dangerous place. And so the question you ask those mothers, Omar, does it get any easier? Does the concern about racism hurting your child, hurting your son, your adult? It does not change much as far as being cautious, but it's mostly inbred. My trust one day is that by the grace of God and good common sense, that there comes a generation that does not forget where we came from, but lives better because they know where we did come from. In short, that your young children, y'all's young children, your age, I watch them and I trust in them that they will not tolerate what we had to go through. They will not tolerate the racism and the sexism and all that. They won't tolerate it to the degree that they will know how to engage and interact in a reasonable, common sense manner, the decency of life, no matter what the color is. That doesn't be the driving force of feeling supremacy or feeling better than anybody else. I trust that y'all's generation, I got hope in y'all's kids. Really, I have hope in your generation that they will not repeat nor live by. And that's the thing that I say, Omar, that they will not repeat nor live by the past issues racially that we had to go through and our foreparents had to go through, even in a worse manner. I believe that there's hope in that next generation, your kids.
Right. And while we're on the same note, right now, Black Lives Matter is really jumping all across the United States of America, even across the world. There's been protests locally and nationally and worldwide about the brutalization of Black men. I want to ask all three of you gentlemen, what are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement? And have any of you three participated in any protest marches? So whoever wants to go first, Ken.
I actually had the opportunity, and I can't go in detail, to actually counsel an individual that was in the Black Lives Matters movement.
Okay.
That actually worked in pretty deep, matter of fact. And as I talked to them and what have you, some of the core things that they were talking about, the issues why they were marching, a lot of things that we're hearing in the news is a mixture. And there's a mixture of things going on that's operating right now that I think does not give a fair representation of what's operating and happening. Also, I think that there's a mixture of people that are blending in that are creating issues that take away from the real object or the subject. And so therefore, with me, I'm at the point looking at this going like, you know what? I pray that the the things that we stood for as far as the life of taking the life of George Ford, as far as the injustice that we're seeing, I believe that they're right to march about that. I believe that they're right to protest that. That I stand for. Um, the people who are intermingling and the looting and the different things in here, I think those are separate issues that are being blended into one just to become a smokescreen and a mask. But I do stand strongly against the racism, the killing, the injustice. I stand strongly behind that. That I will say that much. But like I said, as far as counseling with that individual, I can't go into that because that's what I can't do that as a counselor.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, Audwin and Leonard.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to participate in the movement, but I have been watching closely, uh, reading, and and giving my support from afar, right? One of the things, I continue to educate my 14-year-old, and I always tell him, let's look it up, let's read more about it,
Mhm.
let's see how we can make a change, how we can make a difference, you know. Uh, so I'm like the pastor, I want to continue the conversation, focus on the injustices that are happening within our society. One of the things I can say that I have noticed change with my company alone. Now the conversation is coming out. We're talking about our racial differences. Also our likes. So I can see the movement is making a difference worldwide, and I hope it continues.
Definitely. Leonard, you got anything to say?
Yeah, so for myself, just Black Lives Matter in general, I think it's a very important organization. And, the reason why I think it's important is just because, just how collective it is regarding, standing up for, rights regarding racism and some of the police brutality and some of the senseless killings. And, one of the things I like is that that movement is powerful enough, strong enough, visible enough that it was able to reach people all around the world. So, just recently with George Floyd, if it hadn't been for Black Lives Matter and, some other affiliate groups, like I remember like the Pope said something about, his killing. There are people in other countries who don't even speak English who are holding up signs and, had like George Floyd shirts. So, if Black Lives Matter was not around, would it have made that much media attention? Would people around the world know about the brutality that police have been committing on Black people here in America? And I think the answer is maybe, maybe not. We don't know, but we know that because of Black Lives Matter and other organizations they have. For myself personally, when Ferguson happened, and I think it was 2015. I did participate. I think there are 1 or 2 Black Lives Matter marches in Wilmington.
Right.
I did participate in those. Most recently with George Floyd, I did not participate. But what I did do is we have a lot of, I said we have 18 websites, 18 different cities. And what we did do was we post a lot of news, a lot of updates, a lot of, so a lot of people sent us their videos. They sent us their pictures, videos of police brutality during the, there was a meme that I saw on Facebook that I like, earlier Facebook and Instagram. One of the things they talked about is how are people going to go to a police brutality protest and then get brutalized by the police at the protest? So, like that's one of the things I always think about because, even a lot of those cases, people were protesting, at least for majority of the daytime, people were protesting peacefully and the police were still aggressive. They were still attacking. They were still using bully methods. So it's kind of like, okay, if we can't protest peacefully, then, what can we do? And I think kind of like Apostle was saying, there's another element to, with the riots and stuff like that. I don't consider those people Black Lives Matter. I consider those people who just kind of took advantage of the situation.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but I definitely think Black Lives Matter is a great organization. I can honestly say I don't know the structure. I don't know who the president is, but just as far as African Americans have been able to really just unify under Black Lives Matter for one common goal, which is to stop police brutality and racism.
I think it's a beautiful thing when men can come together in unity. As the show was beginning today, Apostle had referred to you two gentlemen as brothers. I know
Yes.
Audwin always referred to other African American men as brothers, and probably so as Leonard. I want to talk about the N word, because we as African American men, we use that word very loosely. That's one word that I don't subscribe to. Some people say the N-I-G-G-A. We do it out of love. It's endurement. It's peace. But to me, it's just a negative connotation of the history that we had to struggle for in this life. So I want to ask you, men, talk about significance as men, as African American men. We refer to each other as brothers, as opposed to the N-I-G-G-A term. If anybody wants to address that,
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
yes, I mean, I'll go first, and this is my personal opinion. I use the word not frequent. It's not running out my mouth all the time,
Right.
but I mean, like, I have used the word. But one thing that I am very careful of is the situations in which I use it. So kind of like how you talked about, okay, if we're brothers and there's a certain, let's say, comfort level or respect level, then I may or may not use the word. But, I also know, probably just like any other word, like I know when not to use it. So if I'm around people who I respect or who are not, comfortable with that word, I'm not using it around them. I'm definitely not using it around, using the word around people of other races. Because, I feel like, and this is probably one thing we hear a lot is, oh, well, if you can say it, why can't I say it? So, with that said, people who we share certain interests and we are brothers and we are African American or Black, I may possibly use a word around them, but other than that, I'm not using the word. So I mean, I can probably feel confident and say that nobody who is not of African descent has ever heard me say the N word. My grandparents have never heard me say the N word.
Yeah.
There's probably like no senior citizens or people who I know who, don't use it, who I just use it willy-nilly around.
Could I interject something here?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
All my life, I've heard the N word used in so many vernaculars, so many different ways. Now, because of my age and my upbringing, and also the change that my spiritual life took, I take a different view, but yet retain the knowledge of what the N word means in my culture. So therefore, if I stopped at a barber shop and they were hanging out and they were talking like that, I would thoroughly understand that it was not an attack on me. I would understand where they're coming from because it's our culture. But generally speaking, in my home and in my vocabulary, I find myself leaving that word out simply because of the fact that it's become weaponized. Just like the B word for my sisters. I don't like it. And I'm not saying I don't like it because I don't like hip hop or this, that, and the other. I don't like it because it's been weaponized. But at the same time, being honest, okay, Brother Odom, being honest, Leonard, being honest. If I was out in the street tonight and someone said, "Oh, I remember that's my in over there," I would tell them, I said, "How you doing, man? You're still about the same thing," and I would laugh it off. But at the same time, if it was used in another way, I could become very offended at it and what have you. Now, I am interracially married. My wife hates that word. She hates everything about it. No joke, nothing. We've been married for 41 years. So she's seen the guys come up, just playing and shooting the breeze and what have you. And I watch it, she cringes with it and what have you. But I get where she's coming from. So I'm saying at the same time that if truth, and I like to deal with truth be told, we men sitting here know that if you were talking like that and what have you, would probably not really come up to me like that because of my age, because you tend to be remind me of a brother that would look at a man like me and go, well, I'm going to respect the apostle here. I'm not going to go call him, hey, my in, how you doing, brother? So, see, after I got a certain age, I don't get too many of them, no way, bro.
Right.
But we do understand the climate in which it's spoken and the difference that it makes how it's spoken. We do understand that. I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah. And I too, I agree 100% with both of you brothers. One of the things I try to instill today is a positive light. Not saying I've never used the word, because I have. It's part of my culture. But I don't use it. Hopefully, as much. If I do, it's around some friends that's the way we kick it. We talk. But it's a lot of times it's also being social and in different environments, different environments that I'm in. I'm around all types of different walks of life. So and like Pastor Ivory said, if I'm at the barbershop and the young brothers are using it, and most of the time they're using it and a positive light toward each other, I listen, I respect them, and they always call me Unc, so they don't call me the N word. So I will get that. But one of the things I try to do is teach my children that it shouldn't be used, and I always keep in mind of what you listen to can sometimes be instilled into you, especially through the music, So the B word, the N word, really be mindful.
Yeah.
And that's the key, being mindful.
Right. Once again, all three of you men are very positive, good family men, good businessmen, proper, educated, all that good stuff. Who are some of the men in your life that you admire and why? Let's start off with Apostle.
Well, the number one man that I really admired that had an influence in my life was my uncle James Ivory Boomer, and there were traits and things that I learned from him today. The work ethic and the drive that I had. The man had a tenacious work ethic. He had a tenacious drive in him, and I find sometimes I laugh because I can see threads of him in me and what have you. Wherein I have the same similar type of drive. And now as I've gotten older, I watch how he looked out for my great grandmother, his mom. And in me now is that thing to just look out for my mom. I mean, like I said, some of my sisters and brothers are listening to this show. As I gotten older, I say this to them as well as to you guys. As I gotten older, what I learned from my uncle that raised me, the care for his mother, that thing has gotten into me, guys, and it is amazing. I find myself duplicating certain traits that I learned from the life pattern. In one of the books that I wrote called The Hurt Man, I talk in one of the chapters about mentors, the missing link. I thank God that the missing link in my life was not a good male mentor. It was my uncle, who I called my dad. That man right there has the greatest influence on my life as a black male role model.
Okay, Audwin.
Yeah, well, I would have to say my father first. My father was a phenomenal man. I came from a broken family. My real father divorced, left my mother when I was 2 years old, and my stepfather raised me from 2 on up till he died in 2001. And just watching the struggles and the things that he overcame, and also he had a strong work ethic. Also, he was. I always call him. He was just a master. He was a plumber. He was a carpenter. He was a truck driver. He could build anything. He was a boat captain. He had a man with many hats, and people would come to him for advice, and he would take his time out and help. And as I I guess, matured and traveled throughout the world. I think when I moved to Delaware, I was still trying to find who I was, and I ran into a pastor, Pastor Madison McCray, and he took me under his wing, and gave me that spiritual nourishment that I needed,
Yeah.
which helped me really grow. He encouraged me to not only be strong with myself, but also to be strong around others, to help others. You know, he really gave me some education on how being a man. When I met my wife, our firstborn, we weren't married. And he went into tutelage and counseling about marriage. And then I met my current pastor, Pastor Bullock, with Canaan Baptist Church, and he continued that process. He married me and my wife, and I'm still under his tutelage now. In
Awesome.
Sunday school, Bible study every Wednesday. Right now we're attending church online, but I think that spiritual nourishment and having a mentor. One of the things our pastor always says, is education, not incarceration. So helping brothers understand that you need to get that education. Whether it's college, whether it's work, whether it's tech, whatever education you get some education behind you, because that's one thing no one can ever take from you. So I think that's a couple of the mentors I have. I have many more, but they're the main three at this time.
Awesome.
All right, Leonard.
Yeah, and I'll probably say for myself, the biggest two are probably my father and my grandfather. And one of the things I learned from my father growing up, and I would definitely consider him a strict father, because I feel like he never gave me anything. In certain ways, it was never good enough. So like, if I came home with an 80, that's not good enough. You gotta do better. If I came home with a 90, that's not good enough. You gotta do better. So, at the time, I just considered it, a strict father, not fun and all that stuff. But, what I learned once I went to college and, even after college up until now is that, or at least for me, you have to work for everything you get. You can't depend on people to give it to you. You can't depend on other people to motivate you. You really have to do it for yourself. So, I mean, that's one thing when I look back, I feel like he's very strict, and I didn't get to have all the fun that I wanted to have. Right. But now, just some of those values of knowing, okay, it's time to go to work. Okay, you got to do better. So, those are some of the things that I probably respect the most about him. Other than that, like, he was just very intelligent. Like when I think of somebody who would probably go on Jeopardy and do well, like a lot of random knowledge about a lot of random things. Wow. So like that was something that was always amazing to me, because it's almost like, okay, well, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know about hummingbirds? And, how you know about this random stuff that most Black men or, don't know about, or most fathers aren't sharing with their children. And then, the other person will probably be my grandfather, and probably mainly on the reason that, he was a very, he was a quiet person. He was very to himself, but he accomplished so much. And, he didn't feel the need to go around bragging about his accomplishments. He didn't have to tell everybody who he was. And, a lot of times his reputation preceded him. So, I kind of always admired that, where it's kind of like, okay, you can be accomplished and not have to tell everybody. Like, you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to be the most respected person in the room. So, those were probably the main qualities. Just like the last brother was saying, I mean, I have a couple other people who, helped for a season along the way. But, I definitely consider those the two biggest influences.
Bishop, Apostle, you're in a leadership position. You teach the gospel of the church. I was thinking prior to the show, and Leonard, you're the executive director of DelawareBlack.com, and Audwin, you're in a leadership position. When you were in a leadership position, man, it's like you got to almost live the perfect life, because every little thing you do, man, if the media get a hold of it, they're gonna take it and then they're gonna run with it. You know, you got to deal with temptation, you got to deal with bribery, you got to deal with this, that, and the other. Wow. So how tough is it to be in a leadership position? Because man, it's like you got the whole world watching you.
It can be very tough. I'll show you an example of how tough it can be. Just the question that you asked about Black Lives Matters. There are individuals out here who probably didn't hear me, what I said. They will hear what they think I said.
Mm-hmm.
And they will take that and run with it and try to make me political. I have made no political statement on this broadcast whatsoever. I only state that I stand behind the fact that injustice is being addressed. Now, why do I say that as a leader? Because I understand that when you hold, the young people call it a brand. We in the old school call it integrity and your name. So whatever you say or do, if you are uninformed, I believe, like Leonard said, it was certain things he may not know. But the part about justice and the part about wanting to demand and having to demand fair treatment, fair justice, equal justice, we both stand on the same. Do I know the in and outs of a specific thing? No. But when you're talking about being a leader, every statement you make does have a difference. Now, about a couple of months ago, a situation came up in the community, and I had to actually bow out of the way of it because it would have drawn the wrong kind of attention. Sometimes, Omar, I have shows that ask me to come on to them because of my faith in what I represent in my Christianity. Mm-hmm. I cannot just join everything. I can't be on every platform. If you find me on a show, I'm doggone sure weighed out carefully the collateral damage that I will deal with. That's leadership and wisdom.
Well, I'm glad you was on my show.
Hey, I've watched you, nephew.
I appreciate it. Leonard, do you have anything to share with that, or are you good?
Well, I mean, personally, the role I'm in now is, I always say that people are always watching you. Even when you don't think you're being watched. And one of the things that really keeps me focused is that in my work, in my travels, and when I was a supervisor at Horizon House, I always be mindful to lead by example. And I always kept in mind that I'm not working for man, I'm working for God. So I'm gonna do the best I can to please God. And that's what I always keep instilled within me. That's why I really enjoy what I do. Because just giving back, just talking about drugs and alcohol, showing people that there is a way, there is a new way of life. It just excites me. Each time I talk to an individual. So I think just leading by example, being the best person that I can be, is how I lead.
Yeah, and I was just going to piggyback. I definitely agree with what both of the brothers said earlier. I also think it just comes down to, if you're used to doing the right thing, then a lot of times doing the right thing is easy. So, when temptation comes, whatever it may be, and whatever type of leadership, I think it's easier to stay straight and narrow than to like swerve and come back to the straight lane. So that's one of the things I always think about. I understand nobody's perfect, not even myself, but for the most part, and I think the other thing I think about is, okay, like what breeds that temptation? So, for me, like if there's certain temptation, like I'll just try to stay away. There's been plenty of times in business, I'm sure the other gentlemen can probably agree that, certain situations, like you see them coming and you're like, okay, like I gotta go. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna entertain certain situations. I'm not gonna be caught in any, predicaments or anything like that. So, I think it's just kind of like an awareness where, you know when certain things are coming. So like, you know, one of the things I always think about, and I'm sure you know, both of the brothers here can probably echo, is the more people you know, a lot of times is the more people who are going to ask you for stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of become accustomed to when they're like, hey, brother, you know, can I, you know, and it's like you already see something coming, which is probably going to be something you don't really want to do. So, you know, like a lot of times when I see stuff like that coming, I just try to, you know, nip it in the bud. Oh, no, you know, I don't got $5 either.
Wrap
Like,
it up.
I'm just as broke as you are. So, you know, I think it's really just avoiding temptation. And if I can piggyback, I was just thinking one thing that Apostle was talking about when he was talking about, even though his son is grown, you know, you still worry about him sometime when he leaves the house or when he's, you know, on the road, because you don't know what type of situation he might end up on. And I would even say for myself, like sometimes when I leave the house, my wife is the same way too, because I mean, like I'm not a troublemaker, but you know, neither was, you know, a lot of black men who, you know, Ahmaud Arbery, he was just jogging. Right. So, I mean, you know, just being a black man itself is, you know, cause to just be, you know, aware of your surroundings and always just knowledgeable of, you know, where you are and what's going on.
Hey, Omar, can I ask the question?
Sure.
Being here with you, brothers, which I thank the Lord. I'm enjoying this. Thanks for having me to be a part of this, guys. I appreciate this. I want to ask y'all a question and see if you can't just give me a little bit feedback. In your field, in what you do with DelawareBlack.com, in what you do with the drug and alcohol programs that you're with and the counseling that you do, if you could give advice on a way out, I'm talking about a life that you're talking to who has lost their way, but they're trying to find their path back. In your organization, in your group, in the work you do, what advice would you give them? I mean, just you know, just keep it who you are. Keep it who you are. You know, I mean, I'm trying to get my head together. You know, I got 1,000 people telling me how I messed up, how I'm a deadbeat, this, how I, you know, just. But now I want to get my head together. I'm a young person out here. I don't know what you know. All I know is I've messed up bad, and I want to get my life together. Come out of incarceration, brother Odom. Come out of incarceration. Cross addicted to drugs and alcohol. My life is a mess, and I want you to tell me something. Show me your path of hope. Show me what your group, your organization can speak to me. Speak to me.
Well, usually I speak about myself, and you know, I share some of my background, some of my struggles. You know, I too have been incarcerated. You know, I too have been stopped by police. I have been homeless. I have been jobless. You know, but one of the things that I think really help, and what I try to instill is there's help out here. You know, and you know, I was just thinking about Brother Leonard. You know, sharing that positive message. I think it's the key, you know, letting people know what you do, that there is drug and alcohol places you can go to. You know, I wear a few hats. I'm a smoke cessation counselor. You know, I help people quit smoking. You know, I also encourage people not to gamble. You know, it's any form of addiction, sexual addiction. You know, we struggle with a multitude of a lot of things, and I think knowing a lot of people, you know, knowing where to turn really helps out. You know, sending people to church, to AA, NA, to treatment facilities, you know, is a key. But one of the things I will always say is never lose hope.
Yep. So probably what I'll say, and it probably really just comes from, you know, a business point of view, because a lot of times I'll just try to think of, well, not on purpose, but, you know, today, if I lost everything I did, or I had to move to a new city, you know, what would I do? And, you know, the two things I would say that I think everybody needs to have some type of side hustle or a side business. And if we're speaking directly, I would tell people that they need to go on Instagram. They need to find a topic or a niche and they need to focus on monetizing Instagram. And I seriously tell people that because, there's a lot of money to be made on a lot of these social media platforms. Some people recognize it, some people don't. But, coming from, and I'll just say moderate success on social media, I just see how a lot of these people, men and women, are, making hundreds of thousands of dollars selling products, promoting brands, giving messages, and all that type of stuff. So, I mean, that's probably what I would say. I feel that, every, let's say, Black person or Black family should either have an individual LLC or a family LLC. And, they should be focusing on trying to build wealth for themselves and their family.
Now, Leonard, I'm going to say this to you, brother. I took note from your generation and under and built the media section and also built the not only the media in the area of online work that we do with the publications and everything. And by listening at y'all, I tapped into the internet, and I have now a very strong counseling internet thing. I mean, when I say strong, it's strong. and it has been gotten so strong that during the COVID, I was able to help one Black business not close down, pay for 1 year for at a school division that deals with underprivileged children. And matter of fact, I'm actually looking for Evelyn and I to invest again into something else that goes beyond, that helps people that are in that position of needing the help. But it would have never happened if I had not learned how to monetize, if I had not learned how to create a life coach business. Some people look at me as a preacher. It's almost funny. When you got the title as a preacher, they think what you're doing is a church service. No, what I'm doing is not a church service, and it ain't a church office offering. It is a business venture that is helping people and counseling on many different levels, and also using the internet to push and get finances that will help push and do other things. And you're completely right. In your genre, in the field that you work in, you gave the perfect answer, because that's exactly what I was expecting you to say. I was expecting you to stay in your niche and give advice there. So I feel you, man. Your generation is the reason why that I'm making finances today, listening at y'all. It was a crazy thing. Who would think you would tap into YouTube and monetize it? Who would think that? Who would think that you would use Facebook and other avenues? It's other young men and women like you that are giving my advice, working for me in California and also in other areas of the country, are people your age and younger who are doing my editing, who are doing work with the internet and stuff for me, getting old school here to be relevant with the message that's in me. Because I got something to say with my voice, but I just needed you young people's wisdom to get it out, and it's working. Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, and what I will say, one thing I was gonna say just to piggyback on that too is and you had mentioned YouTube. There's probably not anything that you can't find out how to do via YouTube. Like whether it's like fixing a car, putting a business, so that's why like a lot of people will be like, oh, where do I start? A majority of the time I say go to YouTube. Like YouTube is the perfect, and it's free.
I
So
just
it doesn't get any better than that.
I just counseled a young couple today. Who is just getting ready to put up a YouTube, coded for the monitoring, the stuff they're doing around their house. Now to somebody go like, what the heck is that? Who's gonna look at that? Quite a few people. And they're doing house repairs and different things like that. And they're just a young Black couple. They kind of it was funny because when they were telling me about it, it was almost like, you do know what we're talking about. I said, yeah, like my YouTube channels that I have. Of course I know what you're talking about. But that's where we're at today, learning how to operate and move in the cyber world. Yeah.
Right. Gentlemen, so before we close out, I want you three gentlemen, if you want to give a shout out to you're wise, because they say behind a strong man, there's a strong woman. So I'm going to let you three gentlemen get the opportunity to give a shout out to your wives. I don't know if they're watching right now, but hopefully they are. And then also, just what do you think about this series, Conversation with Men of Color? Any encouraging words that you want to say about future shows I'm going to do? So let's start off with Audwin, Leonard, and Apostle.
Well, I truly wouldn't be where I was today without my wife. She's my backbone. She supports me in everything I do. Any crazy endeavor that I try, she's there. Right now I'm trying to establish wealth. We have a couple of properties. I have a little lawnmower business on the side.
Awesome.
And I'm trying to learn more. I'm trying to, as Pastor was saying, look at YouTube, gain more knowledge about financial wealth, and pass that on to my children, but I guess I want to thank her first and foremost. But this conversation, I believe, is very important because brothers are brothers. We need to come together. Sometimes I look on television, I see, a lot of strong women who are empowering each other, and I really commend them. But one of the things that we don't have enough of is Black men empowering each other, and I think we need more.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Omar, for giving me this opportunity, and I hope this conversation keeps going. Thank you, brother.
Hey, Leonard.
Yep. So I would definitely love to give a shout out to my wife, Yolanda. She is not watching because she's making sure the kids stay quiet. But one of the things, and I'll just say I appreciate about her. So she is also an entrepreneur, and she is what I would consider like a strategist. Like she's like a thinker. Well, if I tell her I'm going to do something, she's like, well, why are you going to do that? Who's going to buy it? Like what, she asked all those questions where I didn't think about it. I just said, hey, I want to do it. So I was going to do it. So, I do appreciate that. And, I think having someone who you're kind of like-minded with is a benefit because they kind of understand the struggle. So it's kind of like, a lot of times they'll say entrepreneurs, like you'll get paid $500 one day, then you'll make $0 day 2, 3, or 4, and then you'll make $100. So, just somebody kind of understanding that, the entrepreneur life, even though we think it's based on freedom and flexibility, a lot of times entrepreneurs are working harder than the 9-to-5ers and, working weekends and stuff like that. So, just kind of having a partner who understands the struggle is invaluable. And then, just as far as this conversation, I think it's a great conversation because I think, men just don't talk freely enough. So, I mean, granted, and I'll just be honest, I have about 2 or 3 close brothers who I will speak to. Mm-hmm. And other than that, like I probably don't speak to a lot of people. Now, if people come and, they ask questions, I'll help them. But, as far as forming a bond, and we think about those people who I consider like brothers, it's probably only like 2 or 3 people who I consider like that. So I definitely don't have that conversation a lot. And, even with the people I consider like brothers, a lot of times we already know what each other thinks, so we don't even talk about it. So, Omar, I just want to thank you for putting this together. I hope everyone who's watching is getting something out of it. I think the other brothers on here, I definitely, appreciate your wisdom and just experience. But yes, I definitely think this is something that needs to happen more often.
Okay, Apostle.
Well, I cannot go off without thanking the Lord, thanking God for my wife, Evelyn. I affectionately call her the boss. It's because it's through the wisdom that she has. We have had our home solidly together, and we thank God for that. So, Evelyn, I give a great big shout out to you, honey. I appreciate you the best. Amen. And Omar, I want to say that this conversation with the Black brethren coming on talking like this is a benefit. What I love about this is you're matching different lives, different occupations, but yet we all end up with the same goal. We want to see us be a better us, a better people, and a better family. And I hear it in all 3 of us saying the same thing. And there are so many things that we Black men are doing. I like this positive thing and what have you, because we ain't deadbeat dads and we ain't all out there somewhere hung up or messed up. Some of us are trying to be an answer and a solution to the problem. some of us have had the problem and trying to help others come out as well, not forgetting where we came from. Then, like my brother there and what have you, with his business and what have you, DelawareBlack.com. I mean, look there, I would have never met him had it not been on your show. So there are people you're bringing together here, Black men you're bringing together here with some positive information, with some positive insight. I commend you to what you're doing, man. Keep it going. Keep it going, brother.
I definitely will. So this is the premiere. This is episode 1. So this is a success, and I look forward to keep it going. I'd like to thank all 3 of you gentlemen for coming on today, and thank everyone else for watching. So until next time, be safe.
All right, thank you, Omar.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you, guys.
God bless you, brother.
And I got your emails, gentlemen, so look out for a call, a contact.
Okay.
Awesome. God bless you, bro. Look
Yes,
forward to
same
it.
here.
All right, see you
Take
later.
care.